Let us gather here today and lament the 2025-26 Chicago Blackhawks. Are you kidding me? Why did you ever want to remember this squad? Man, this team sucks! And thus ends another season of Chicago Blackhawks hockey. I know there's still 2 months left of the season, but who really cares at this point? They're way out of the picture. They're not getting in. What, did you think this team had a shot to get into the playoffs this year? Actually, I kind of did. I thought they had maybe an outside chance to get into the wild card in the West if they played at the potential. But that has not been the case, and they stink again. But the funniest part is that they're not nearly as bad as they were last year. That tells you how bad the last couple of years have been for the Chicago Blackhawks. When we look back on the Centennial season for the Chicago Blackhawks, we're going to sit there and say, well, at least they beat the Dallas Stars twice in about a week without Connor Bedard, and they blew out the Blues twice. That's it, man. I'm grasping at straws with that one. And this week cemented their failure. I don't really want to talk about each of these games individually too much. They got blown the hell out in Pittsburgh after a period one that wasn't too bad. They were tied after one, and in a nightmarish second period where they let up 4 goals, they were down 6-1 before Connor Bedard scores a great goal that no one's going to care about because it was 6-1. And, well, I mean, I what do you want me to talk about in that game? There's nothing to talk about that I haven't already said before. Now, look, I'll be the first to admit, I am by no means an expert with the Chicago Blackhawks this season, in the sense that I've been watching every game for every second, and I know everything that happens in the game. But at the same time, you look at a 6-2 final, what is your main takeaway? They stink. There isn't really a lot of nuance that you can put into this game. That's a bad performance through and through on the road in Pittsburgh. That's just lifeless. And they followed up with another dud against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, it was a 1-goal game for a while. They had to try and come back in that game. They couldn't get the tying goal, and Columbus walks away with the win. And that was the moment when I knew that the season was over. Now, despite me not watching every second of every Hawks game this season, I can still pick up on some common themes just by seeing what people are saying online. Journalists, the team, seeing highlights, seeing the general discourse. It's clear to me that this team is not there yet. There's still a lot of development that needs to happen. Like, for example, Artem Levshinov is probably going to be sent back down to Rockford. That's not good. He's been playing the majority of the games this season, if not all the games for the Hawks this year. And now that they're talking about, well, he's got some fundamentals he's got to work on. And that, if you watch him play, you can tell, yeah, he's got some fundamentals to work on, but some of his highlights are very nice and shows why he was selected number 2 overall. But it's still disappointing because now we're closing in on, we're towards the end of year 2 for Levshinov, and he has yet to really announce himself to the National Hockey League, which is really upsetting. And the fact that he might have to go back down to Rockford to close out the year, if it's going to happen, it's got to happen. Like, if it's got to happen, it's got to happen. They're calling up Sam Rinzel, which I'm glad for Rinzel to come back up to the Chicago Blackhawks. But again, we were talking about trading a defensive prospect for another. It's still not that good. It's clear that this team is still really young, and not in the really young way that, like, oh, things are coming together, they're at the beginning of a contending window, or it looks like they're at the beginning of a contending window. No, they're young in the sense that guys still need to develop, and they don't have the veteran players and the guys who have been there for a long time that can guide them to competitive hockey in March. Because we're going to be here again as we head into the Olympic break with the team pretty much out of playoff contention. There's no way they get in. I know the Western Conference isn't exactly super strong this year, but still, they're not going to get into the playoffs. So we're going to go into March, and they're going to be out of the picture yet again. And leave it to the Chicago team to, right after I pretty much, in my own head, declare this season finished and over, they go out and punk the San Jose Sharks, going up 4-0. They won that game 6-3. Like, oh my gosh. Of course You have one of your best performances of the season right after I call the season finished. Finito. Bedard scored a nice goal. Hey, Sam Renzel got back on the score sheet. Like to see that. Ilya Mikheyev had a 4-point night. I mean, it was a very nice day for the Chicago Blackhawks. But it doesn't... I don't know. It was a good game. Yeah. But it's too late now. That's kind of where I'm at. It's too late now. Now, look, if they were able to go into Columbus and beat a team that is on absolute heater with their new head coach, Rick Bowness, they're like 10-1 since they hired him. No. I mean, if is the big word here. They didn't. Why would I believe that they would actually do it? Because they haven't shown us that they can do this all year long. There's a couple of nice wins on the road against tough teams. Dallas, Carolina. But outside of that, it's just a whole lot of nothing on the road against tougher teams or teams that are on hot streaks. Because the Columbus Blue Jackets, while they're not necessarily a really good hockey team overall this season, they're on a massive hot streak going into the Olympic break. Got shut out. Just an embarrassment. They're down 3-0 before the first half of the game is even over. They can't generate anything. The whole game's a wash. The whole game is a wash. What is there for me to talk about? What is fair for me to analyze in this game? There really isn't anything when you go down and lose 4-0. No one played well. It's that simple. The entire team sucked. As they have, funnily enough, since Connor Bedard returned. They were starting to kind of build something. They had a really nice start to 2026, beating some tougher teams. They beat Vegas. They beat Dallas twice. It was kind of nice. And if I remember correctly, the last game before Connor Bedard came back, they beat the crap out of the St. Louis Blues. Connor Bedard comes back, and they're starting to struggle again. I don't think it's a Connor Bedard problem, or at least Connor Bedard himself. I think it's the entire coaching staff trying to play and structure the team around Connor Bedard, and the team is just not built for that. So you're kind of stuck. Now look, I have no idea how you would still believe in this team, but if for some reason you do, allow me to tell you why I think this season is over. Going into the Olympics break, the Chicago Blackhawks are 10 points behind the Anaheim Ducks for the second wild card in the Western Conference. Not only do they have to catch Anaheim, they have to leapfrog 3 teams to get there. The Nashville Predators, the San Jose Sharks, and the Los Angeles Kings. So not only to get that spot out of the break, would you need to win 5 in a row, and Anaheim would need to lose 5 in a row, you would then need to also leapfrog 3 other teams who would be gunning for that final wild card spot anyway. So you can see why I say it's over, because that's really, really hard to make up in 1 month. Or, well, a month and a half. Maybe close to 2 months. But still, regardless, from the end of February to mid-April, that is very hard to make up. And I don't think they're going to be able to do it. This team has been very inconsistent. They've looked good at portions of this season, but the vast majority they have looked pretty bad. And I don't think that they're going to come back from the Olympics and all of a sudden put things together. Because if I remember correctly, there's only one guy on the Blackhawks who's going to the Olympics. And if I remember correctly, it's Teuvo Teravainen going to play for Finland. But like, even if this team goes out and, goes ham on practicing over the Olympics break, even then, I still don't think this team is good enough to make up those 10 points. Now look, this season was an improvement. They're not a bottom 3 team in the league like they have in the last couple of years. Fine, but you're still a bottom 10 team. You're still not good. You're still probably 1 to 2 years away from competing. The only way that this team competes next year is if they make good moves in free agency and their young guys are able to develop. I think that as we get close to the end of the year, maybe Lev Shinov's really the only exception. Maybe he does need to play in Rockford for a little bit. But I'd say some of these other young guys, Moore, Lardis, Rinzel, Vlasic, Nazar, Green, heck, even guys like Kevin Korchinski, I think that they could really benefit from the time up in Chicago to play at the NHL level. Now, again, I said this last year to myself. I didn't do any videos last year, but it's what I was thinking last year. And, well, that didn't really help at all. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how else this team gets better. I don't know how else. Now, look, maybe I'm not thinking about this correctly, and they actually need to spend time down in Rockford and develop there, and maybe even make a push in the Calder Cup playoffs like they kind of did last year a little bit before getting reverse swept by Milwaukee. And, maybe that's what's more important as opposed to forcing some of these young guys to play up at the NHL level and kind of getting shell-shocked a little bit. So maybe that's it. We're getting the young guys on this team that are still developing and trying to find their place either in Rockford or in Chicago. When Connor Bedard has played 10 fewer games than the next highest scorer, yet still has 11 more points, that says a lot about the depth of this team, or the lack thereof, of other role players, star players on this Blackhawks roster. Tyler Bertuzzi is second in points for the Chicago Blackhawks. He's 11 points behind. Connor Bedard has played 10 more games than him. I think that says a lot. This team, if they want any shot at competing for the postseason next year, they have to make a big splash in free agency. They have to go and get a big ticket guy. So yeah, I'm not really talking about these games in depth. I'm not really analyzing these games because there really isn't much to analyze. It was two 4-goal losses, a 3-goal win, and a loss by 2 goals at home. There's not much that I can really talk about, especially when I'm declaring the season over. There's not much that I want to talk about these games anyways. There's not much that I can take away. Some rebuilds take a long time. And this Hawks rebuild to get back to the playoffs has taken a long time. It started with the decline of the dynasty team and some really idiotic decisions from Stan Bowman. The Panarin trade was what started it all. Thinking back, oh my gosh, what a moronic decision. And then you trade away some of these other young pieces, Kirby Dach, Dominic Kubalik, Alex DeBrincat, and Dylan Strome. You trade away, even though they weren't super young, they were still crucial pieces. And guys like Patrick Kane loved Panarin and DeBrincat. Oh wow, when Patrick Kane leaves, he's played with Panarin and DeBrincat again. Wow! Jonathan Taves doesn't get re-signed by the team. He pretty much calls it quits, but has returned this year, and I'm super happy for him. But now we're in this spot where it actually feels like the rebuild's starting. It feels like they were kind of holding on to the dynasty team for 3 or 4 years, and now they're in year 4 of a rebuild. But they haven't been to the playoffs in an 82-game season in almost a decade. I think about the 2020 team a little bit. I'm like, that team wasn't that good, but the playoff experience they had when they got to the bubble in Edmonton and were able to knock out Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and that Oilers team was super fun. Got smacked by the Vegas Golden Knights, a real team, like they should have. Corey Crawford gave them a fluky win in Game 4 of that series. But that wasn't a full 82-game season. They only got into the playoffs that year because of the expanded format. So we're still looking back at 2017 as the last time this team made the playoffs in a full 82-game season. And they were swept as the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. So there's a lot of rebuilding still left to go. And I'm just kind of waiting. I'm like, I don't care if they get the second wild card. I want to see them back in the playoffs. 1 year, man. It feels like it's been too long, and this drought is just going to get longer and longer as this team continues to try and rebuild. And so as we lament the Chicago Blackhawks in their Centennial season, we're going to remember it as a massive dud, yet again. But at least they weren't a bottom 3 team in the NHL, which they haven't been very often in their franchise's existence. But, a bottom 10 below average team has kind of been where the Chicago Blackhawks have been for probably about 75% of their existence. The thing is, they've made the playoffs quite a bit because you could be a below average team in the 70s and 80s and still get into the playoffs. That's not good enough anymore. No 16-team playoff format in a 21-team league. We're talking about 16 teams in a 32-team league. It's a lot different now. And you got to be at least average to above average to get into the postseason. And the Blackhawks simply have not been that in a long time. And so while there are still 2 months until the NHL playoffs begin, I'm not really thinking this team's going to do much of anything to close out the season. So I'm going to be excited for the Olympics here, rooting on Team USA. If you're up north, you're rooting for Team Canada. Simple as that. Doesn't matter. No Blackhawks are on either of those teams. But I'll be watching that. That'll be fun. And then I'll have to just maybe try and have fun with the Blackhawks. Just sit and not really care about wins and losses. See if there's anything cool that happens. That's what we've been doing for a while now. So expect the videos to get a little shorter as the season concludes. It's just not been a great season for the Blackhawks. It's better than it was the last 2 years, but they're still not playing competitive hockey in March, which is kind of what I wanted this season to be at the very least, but we're not going to be getting that this year. Sucks to suck. Have fun with the Super Bowl. Have fun with the Olympics. And then we'll reconvene at the end of February and remember just how bad this team is and how bad it's been in Chicago in terms of hockey for a while. Anyways, that's it for me. Please give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button if you really liked it. Keep the conversation going down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about the Chicago Blackhawks season. It's a complete failure. We can all agree on that, but what are some of your takeaways? Heck, do you still believe in this team to kind of turn things around when the Olympic break finishes? Anyways, without further ado, I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.